Bringing you the top stories from Bonners Ferry to St. Mary's and everywhere in between. This is the North Idaho Prepcast with Ryan Scaggs.
That's right. Another edition of the North Idaho Prepcast on IdahoSports.com, your weekly breakdown for everything Districts 1 and 2 up north in the state of Idaho. Brandon Baney alongside Ryan Scaggs. Ryan, how are you?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Yeah, I'm doing great. And that's as far into the pleasantries as we're going to get because you and I are both in a time crunch today. So it is.
Let's roll, brother.
It's straight to business. So big stories going on up north in wrestling and basketball. Pretty significant wrestling story that may have gone under the radar last week. And that's where we want to start this week is on the wrestling mats.
Yeah, Sandpoint picked up the first league win over Lakeland since 2007. So chances are likely that there could have been a few kids on the team that weren't even born since the last time Sandpoint beat Lakeland in a league duel. So pretty substantial feat for the Bulldogs to get that win. And I see the 4A out of the North for state this year probably going to be the most balanced representation they've had at state in a long time.
That's good for all three of the schools in terms of getting guys to state, bad in terms of competing maybe on a big statewide level. But
yeah, whether or not somebody gets a top 10 finish, I don't know. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how that works, and shakes out for the teams from the North. It's a little bit of a down year, I would say, for the 4A, an up year for the 3A. Priest River's been making a run lately. Really quietly competed very well against some 5A schools at the River City Duels. And then last weekend ended up getting a second place finish in a tournament. So Priest River is kind of peaking now, which is pretty interesting to see. And then the smaller schools, St. Mary's, Potlatch, and Clearwater Valley are making runs. They've got some great wrestlers at some of these small schools, and these kids are going under the radar. They can make some noise at state, bringing them some serious hardware. So pretty cool for the smaller schools to be able to step up a little bit. And obviously Post Falls is number 2 in the current rankings. Coeur d'Alene's number 3. I don't think that's going to stay put very much longer. I think Coeur d'Alene's going to end up jumping them in the next rankings, as we're going to see some dates coming up where they've got the North Idaho Rumble coming up this weekend at Coeur d'Alene High School. And Coeur d'Alene, I think, will be favored to win that tournament, but there's going to be some great wrestling coming up this weekend here in Coeur d'Alene.
Yeah, a couple of quick notes, and then we'll preview that North Idaho Rumble. Number 1, 2007, the last time Sandpoint beat Lakeland head-to-head in wrestling. I was a senior in high school in 2007, so
I was in college.
Yeah,
I was my third year of college at that point. So yeah, it's been a while.
That's wild. And to your second point, that co-op between Clearwater Valley and Kamei is really making some noise at the low. I think a lot of people are sleeping on that program, and I'm curious to see what they do when we get to state.
Well, especially Clearwater Valley, that area between Clearwater Valley and Kamei, that little guy program. I mean, they're getting upwards of 100 kids turning out for little kid wrestling. I mean, in that small of a community is unbelievable what they're doing, and they're now starting to see some of the fruits of their labor. Building those smaller programs, building the little guy program and then the junior high program, feeding it. They're gonna be doing well for the next couple of years.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun to watch that. Okay, so North Idaho Rumble coming up this weekend. Give us the breakdown. How many teams are coming? What kind of competition can we expect?
I want to say it's there's over 24 teams represented up here. You'll get a lot of some GSL programs from Washington, so the Greater Spokane League will be represented. You're going to get some teams from Southern Idaho coming up. I know that they're still waiting on final reservations with COVID stuff going on in other areas of the state. So there's teams that have been kind of on hiatus. There's other teams that are jumping back in. So, I think we should know by Thursday morning. I think they're going to have kind of the final numbers because there'll be a couple duels up here on Thursday night. Of who's actually showing up, but we know Coeur d'Alene will be there. I think that they're going to be hungry. There's going to be some solid wrestling weight classes they're going to be out there. The 195-pound weight class is going to be competitive. Obviously, you've got Ryland Rogers in there, but the lighter weights have been just in that tournament have historically just been an absolute free for all bloodbath. It's kind of like blood sport out there on the mat. Just you get some of the smaller schools that got some of those lighter weights, and those kids are every bit as good as the kids from the 5As and the 4As in Washington. So don't be surprised if you see a few kids sneaking in there from like Priest River or Kellogg, placing in the top 4. That wouldn't surprise me one bit. I know that the 160-pound weight class is going to be pretty competitive. I know Gunnar Julio's looking for getting a title there. So, just keep an eye on that one. I think we'll get the solid numbers as far as who's actually going to show up probably tomorrow, is where, we'll rest, because some of the Spokane schools have been shut down with COVID stuff. So we'll see how things play out for this weekend.
Yeah, well, the Greater Spokane League is no joke.
Nope,
when it comes to
not wrestling. Yeah,
no. So, in other sports sometimes, but in the wrestling, definitely not. So,
sure.
Wow, okay, it's going to be a good competition for sure. All right, let's move to the basketball court, where we have our weekly North Idaho 9. These are Ryan's power rankings of the best teams up north, regardless of classification. He ranks them 1 through 9 based upon what they did the week prior. Let's start with boys basketball this week. Or did we say boys or girls? The girls basketball, right?
We're starting with girls this week.
We had our pre-production meeting like 20 seconds ago. And
I think we hit record while we were finishing our meeting. Yeah.
Yeah, we did. Okay. And so again, if you're watching this video on the IdahoSports.com YouTube channel or Facebook page, we're going to put the North Idaho 9 at the bottom of the screen. You can read it there. If you're listening audio only on IdahoSports.com or wherever you download your podcasts, you can just follow along. We'll go through the list 1 through 9.
I'll throw it up on the Twitter feed too. So yeah,
perfect. That sounds great. And give us that Twitter handle real quick, because people really need to be following you.
In Idaho Game Night. So at an Idaho Game Night on Twitter is where you can find us. So awesome. Or find me.
Awesome. Okay. Your girls basketball. Not much change here at the top.
3 stay the same. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead and give us the breakdown here.
So top 3, got Coeur d'Alene on top. That game on Friday night, that girls team from Coeur d'Alene is absolutely impressive. Skylar Burke is one of the better girls players I've seen. And I mean, just all around leadership ability. I mean, she can score from anywhere on the floor, but she plays defense like nobody's business too. And so that Coeur d'Alene team is my sleeper pick for the state championship. I think that they're starting to peak. Early on, we weren't too sure about them. They went down to Boise and dropped a game down there. And no, I think that they're peaking at the right time, and they're a complete team, and they get contribution off the bench too. And they've got like a couple sophomores and a freshman contributing in that lineup, coming off the bench. So, they've got the girls that can score. Simons is a great scorer. She's got 1,000 points in her career. Skylar Burke's got 1,000 points in her career. So Coeur d'Alene's number 1. Lake City's number 2. I was impressed with the Pickfords. They're the real deal. I mean, they can flat play, and Zufelt as a guard does a great job too for Lake City. And I think that they're another team that's gonna be reckoned with. Post Falls still kind of lurking out there. I mean, they gave Coeur d'Alene a run in that game that I had 2 weeks ago. It wouldn't surprise me coming back down the stretch if they steal a game, especially come district time. That they're a sneaky team. They've got good guard play, and they've got a couple senior guards that can flat shoot. So Post Falls will be hanging around. I'm not counting them out anytime soon. Now here's where things get crazy. Right? So we've seen some movement, and we'll talk about it here in the next few minutes as far as results from this last week. But Grangeville's up from 6 to number 4. I like the Bulldogs team. I really do. They're playing great ball down the stretch. They've beat some really good teams. They've beat Prairie. They've beat Kendrick, and it hasn't been close in those games necessarily either. So, the Grangeville teams, they're on a roll. Prairie, they're up 2 spots to number 5, defeating Lapwai last week. So a huge win for that Pirates team, and that's a team I wouldn't be surprised if Prairie and Lapwai play in the state championship game on the girls' side. I mean, we just keep throwing darts at the wall, and there's some other teams around the state that are good, but the North is just so stinking deep, and that's what's just crazy about this season. But the Pirates are up 2 to number 5. I've got Timberlake down 2. They're at number 6. They dropped their first game since 42 meetings or 42 league games. Wasn't it that they dropped to Kellogg this last week? So
yeah,
that's where the Kellogg comes into the rankings at number 7. I didn't put them over Timberlake because they have split on the year, but yeah, no, that was a huge win for Kellogg, and Haley Cheney had 33 points in that game, and then Emily Coe had 12 points and 13 boards. So I mean, just a huge game for both players, and then Haley Cheney had 13 rebounds as well to go with her 33 points in that win over Timberlake. So just an absolute monster game for Kellogg, and then I've got Lapway at number 8. And Kendrick at number 9. I'm going to hear some noise on Twitter, so bring it. I'm not afraid to shy away, but that's just from what I've seen this week's rankings, where the teams sit right now in North Idaho. That's where I've got them. So on the girls' side,
Kendrick at number 9. That's tough. I don't know.
Yeah, I know. Kendrick's your number 9 team. That means that's how deep you are, though, too.
Yeah, that's true. I've been banging the drum for Kendrick all year. Kellogg got that big win. It was last night. We're recording this Wednesday afternoon, Tuesday night. They went and defended their home court against Timberlake and won 59-53 in overtime and snapped a 42-game Intermountain League winning streak for Timberlake. So
a huge win for that program.
Yeah, I would expect to see both teams at state.
Absolutely.
I think the way it sets up right now is second place has to play third place from District 3. And that looks like it's probably going to be New Plymouth at this point, not New Plymouth. That's 2A. It would be like probably Fruitland or Homedale, Weezer, something
Homedale,
like that. Yeah, I think Kellogg and or Timberlake wins that pretty easily. So, and then the fight for the fish. Talk about that a little bit because it happened on Friday. You were on the call.
Fight for the fish that wasn't the fight for the fish, but still looked like fight for the fish.
Yeah. So on IdahoSports.com, you had the audio broadcast of the girls and boys games. The annual fight for the fish was canceled. So here's the other big news at IdahoSports.com. We brought back our sports boards, Ryan. This is where fans can get on and
talk. Sure, went off the rails fairly quickly.
Right. It's the message boards where fans can get on and talk about teams and players and maybe a little smack talk every now and then. And yeah, it got infiltrated by spam bots and just became a graveyard at one point, but we've cleaned it up. We've got lots of moderators now. I'm a moderator, so I'm in there, somebody's spamming. I'm on it like, on Rice. Yeah. And so the sports boards are back. You just go to sportsboards.com. It's also on the homepage at IdahoSports.com. Get signed up because, man, we're having some good chats in there right now.
I'm sure there's some great conversation, especially with the shot clock implementation looming and stuff like that too. There's some interesting stuff going on.
Yeah. So we had Bo Jangles get on the sports boards and ask about the fight for the fish. He said, "Can someone please explain to me how canceling the spirit part of the games tonight, but still letting fans come is saving people from COVID-19? I talked to someone that is there and she said it is sold out. Gym is packed, but no spirit competition because COVID." You were there. Can you tell us what was going on up there?
The only thing I could pretty much say to you is that they capped the community access tickets. So they didn't cap the students. So they kept all the fight for the fish tickets that have been previously purchased by the students and they honored them. What I could see was in the upper levels where I was set up, next in front of the Coeur d'Alene parents section, was at maybe 60%. That's the only difference that I saw was like on the Coeur d'Alene and Lake City side. The parent section was close to full, but not quite. The student section was packed. And they were loud and crazy, and it was awesome. So I think that they, the students are in contact with each other so much anyways at school every day. I think that they kind of just said that was the wash, that, that they're going to try to limit anybody else from the outside that didn't have tickets already purchased for the game. They just cut them off as of like 2:00 in the afternoon on Friday. But it was an awesome crowd. It was pretty dang full. I mean, I wouldn't say it was packed. It's not like Golden Throne full like the Lewiston-Clarkson game will be this week, but it'll still be pretty packed. It still was pretty packed, and it was an awesome atmosphere. It was a ton of fun. It was a great game. I mean, the boys' game was super entertaining too, even though it was low scoring. It was just a defensive battle But that girls game was just absolutely impressive just to see the firepower. Coeur d'Alene raced out to a lead. Lake City erased a 14-point deficit and came back and tied the game with like a minute and change left, and had a chance to send it to OT on the last shot of the game. And Coeur d'Alene got the rebound off the miss instead of the tip in from Lake City, and that was how the game ended. I mean, it could have gone to OT in that girls game. It was a great game.
Yeah. Coeur d'Alene, obviously very talented. We know about Maddie Simmons. We know about Skylar Burke. Yep. At least from my perspective, and I'm not watching the games, I'm just looking at the recaps and the box score and stuff. It seems to me, Ryan, Lily Fennessy is very quietly really improving.
Madison Mitchell, the point guard. Madison Mitchell is a baller. I mean, she's a sophomore, but she can flat play. She fouled out in that game with I think it was like 2 minutes, 2.5, 3 minutes left in the game, and she had 15 points in the game. And Coeur d'Alene missed that. I think that it would have been, had she stayed in the game, I think it wouldn't have been a question. I think that run by Lake City would have been capped, because on the defensive end, she had, I think, 5 or 6 steals in the game. So yeah, Madison Mitchell's kind of the X factor for the Vikings. She's a great guard, and her and Lenny Fennessy are just very quietly, just steady throughout the game, and have great games. I mean, that Coeur d'Alene lineup can flat shoot. I don't care who you give it to. Somebody in that lineup scoring. Even behind the arc, they started from behind the arc. They started the game. Their first 4 shots were all 3-pointers, and they were 4 for 4. That's how the game started.
Yeah, it's not a bad way to go for sure.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
All right. Well, the second part of the fight for the fish, you mentioned it, Lake City, Coeur d'Alene, kind of a lower scoring game. And now let's move to our North Idaho 9 for boys basketball. And this is where there was a big shakeup at the number 1 spot, Ryan.
Yep. I've had Lake City there, and Lake City's still the number 1 team in 5A. Dude, Lapway, I mean, come on. Dunk City, man. That team, if they're not dunking the ball, they're draining threes from like 10 feet beyond the arc. I mean, this team is ridiculous. To go in 1 week, I don't know another team in the state of Idaho that's put up 100 points twice in the same week, but that's what they did last week.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the numbers, and I was like, that can't be right? This didn't really happen, and then it happened again.
Yeah,
and these aren't bad teams that they're playing.
No.
Like Prairie. Like Prairie's a pretty solid team.
They were the number 2 team in the state.
they're second place in the conference, and they win 110-67. I mean, and then they beat Troy.
And here's the scary part is they called off the dogs.
Ugh.
Like that's the part that, like, the backups were coming in and they're scoring in double digits. That's how, I mean, that's the kind of game that they had. And I mean, they got a huge win against Kamei last night. And, they had their entire lineup again scored in double figures.
Well, they only won that game against Kamei 71-44. I'm serious. I don't see them losing. Honestly, the only way they lose, and I'm talking all the way to the title. The only way they lose is, and we're gonna knock on wood here, they have a rash of injuries that knock some guys out. But even then, their second unit could still come in, and they'd have to grind some games out. I think
Elias Yearout can come in and play really well. They've got other guys in that lineup that are on that bench that can play with anybody.
Yeah, and I would say COVID, but they've kind of, Lapway's already had the COVID stuff go through their school, so they should be good there, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing about Lap. I mean, you just look at them. I don't know if we've seen a team like this in the state of Idaho in a while. Like, I really don't know if there's a team that's been this dominant. And we talked about it last year when they were young, and we're like, hey, look at this Lapway team next year. They've got everybody back, and then next year they're going to have 3 out of 5 back. So, I mean, come on. Crazy.
Wow, I can't wait to see them put together their non-con schedule next year, non-conference slate, because they've already beaten 2 5A teams this year, and they're just so excellent. Okay, so Lapway's won.
They're gonna have to leave the state of Idaho next year, I think, for some of their non-conference stuff, because I don't know if anybody in Idaho wants to eat that Max Preps hit.
Well, this is a perfect spot where Lapwai could go to the Tarkanian Classic in Las Vegas. Yep. They could even go out to, a tournament like California, like Hawaii did this past year, and I think they could hold up pretty well. So yeah, I'm if they don't go to a big out of state tournament next year, I think they'll have missed an opportunity. So
yeah.
But again, small school, travel budget, all that stuff.
They'll be playing. I want to see them play like Gonzaga Prep, Central Valley, the Spokane big schools. I really think that would be. They'll compete with anybody. Absolutely. So yeah, I've got Lake City too. And that's not a knock to Lake City. I think that's just how dominant Lapwai is right now. Big one right here is St. Mary's moving up to 3. I'm impressed with the Lumberjacks right now. They are like kind of, I don't want to say sneaky, but like they've been in the rankings all year in 2A, and they're the defending state champs. And it's like, what else do we have to do to like get anybody's respect? I understand they lost to Ambrose, but like they go out and they smoke Sandpoint last night, and a 4A school. They've beat the entire IML, so you can give them the league champ there. They've beat the IEL, so they give them the 4A title too. I mean, like literally, they've won the league title in 3. And actually, you could throw in some of the 1A divisions too, because they've played also. You could give them the league championship right now. Like, I mean, except for obviously they still have to play Lapwai one more time, but.
Let me tell you though, that was like the one time this year Lapwai's actually been tested though. Lapwai only won 59-53.
Yeah. So, that tells you a lot about St. Mary's, and Tristan Gentry is just playing out of his mind right now. Last night he had 20 points, 9 rebounds, 5 assists against Sandpoint. I mean, from your big man, come on. So St. Mary's is rolling, and I look at them right now and I'm like, that they're as good as they're up there with the top 5 teams. I mean, I'd love to see a Coeur d'Alene St. Mary's game. Those two styles against each other, and you get Gentry and Cameron Cope playing down low. Like, that'd be an awesome game to see.
Yeah. Gentry was the 2A MVP of the 2A state tournament last year as he helped St. Mary's win the title. So St. Mary's 3, Coeur d'Alene 4. That would be a fantastic matchup. And then you got Lewiston at number 5.
Lewiston's like, what do we have to do? I mean, yeah, they picked up the loss last week to Coeur d'Alene. I really didn't see that one coming, to be honest with you. I look at Coeur d'Alene and I'm like, defensively, they're so good, but they just have such struggles scoring. And that's going to come back and bite him, I think, later in the year. But defense, they say defense wins championships. But, I mean, they kind of remind me, I don't know if you remember from when you were in high school, but the 2007, 2008 WSU Cougar team and Tony Bennett was there.
Mm-hmm.
Similar, like just really, really tight defense, try to keep the game in the 40s and 50s and see if you can hang on and steal some games. And that's how Coeur d'Alene plays. Lewiston, I think, wants to run the floor a little bit more. They've got a little bit better athletes, I think. But the Bengals have got to show something. They've got to come back and put together 4 quarters if they're going to, beat Coeur d'Alene the next time around. And they're going to have to probably steal a game in the district tournament too. So it'll be interesting to see. So at 6, I've got Moscow. I told you that Moscow is going to go on a run, and they did. And that's where they're at right now. So they're at number 6. They've got a tough slate in front of them, though, because they got to play all the 5A schools. So, they're going to have all the 5A teams, and then they got to go back to their district tournament and play Sandpoint and Lakeland, play one of those teams twice. And that league is so weird that it wouldn't surprise me if Lakeland steals one of those games. Like, it really wouldn't. And it's just how it is. So, especially on the girls' side, too, because Lakeland beat Sandpoint last week. Like, it's just a weird 3-team league that it's kind of like give each other sledgehammers, and whoever survives at the end of the day, like, okay, I guess you're league champions. But Moscow could be a team that could make some noise at state too. They've got great guard play. They can play defense pretty well. So the Bears are an interesting team to watch.
I've learned after Sandpoint's girls soccer team didn't make it to state. You don't bank on anything in that district. It's a Wild West.
Well, it's like I said, like I told you that one of our first episodes, 1-8, you're headed to state. Like you get the one league win, you get to go in. So yeah, it's anything can happen in that conference, and it's just weird. But the Bears are a team to keep an eye on because I think that they will play. I think that they could obviously beat Post Falls, get a win there. They could steal a game from Coeur d'Alene. It wouldn't surprise me. They could steal, I don't know if they're not going to get Lake City. I'm sorry, but I don't want to count. I'm going to make some Moscow fans mad just by counting them out automatically in that game. But so Moscow's got a tough road the next few weeks, but I think that they could definitely win the district title and get to state and maybe win a game or two down there.
Yeah.
So I've got Kamei at 7. Picked up a big win over Logos, or not over Logos, over Prairie last week. And so that whole dynamic with Prairie, Logos, Kamei all kind of cyclically beating up on each other is just going to be interesting. That district tournament's going to be awesome outside of Lapwai beating whoever they play in the title game by probably 50.
Right.
But that number 2 seed is going to be a bloodbath to see who earns that number 2 seed to state for sure. And so I've got Prairie 8 and Priest River comes in at 9. So, and then just missing is Logos and Lakeside. I've got them on the outside looking in, as well as Bonners Ferry and Kendrick too.
Yeah, that's a really good list. I agree. We're getting to the end of the girls' regular season. Like by this time next week, we'll start talking, girls' districts and looking at the brackets and how we think things might go there. So, next week's episode might be a little more girls basketball heavy, only because they're entering the postseason. But man, what a fun time of year, huh, Ryan?
Yeah, and you still got Wallace and Clearwater Valley hanging out on the outside on the girls' side too, with 3 losses on the year. I mean, it's just been an exciting year of basketball up north, and wrestling's going to be fun because they're entering down the stretch too. So you're going to see the loaded lineups coming back, and they're not going to be holding guys out as much down the stretch. So it's going to be and you've had COVID run through some teams, so you're going to see teams that were down a little bit for a couple weeks come back and make a run. So we'll hang on tight and buckle the seatbelts because it's going to be, as John McClane would say, hold on to your butts. So
yeah, no doubt. Okay, real quick, any broadcasts coming up this week on IdahoSports.com?
Saturday, we've got the Meade Panthers from Spokane, the GSL 4A team, taking on Lake City on Saturday. So I'll be there for that game just down the street from my house. So
cool.
It'll be a fun game to watch a Washington school that's pretty good taking on a really good Lake City team.
All right, that'll be a lot of fun to see the full schedule of games, not just in North Idaho, but statewide. Click on the game streams tab at IdahoSports.com on the homepage. That'll do it for the North Idaho Prepcast. Big shouts to Ryan Scaggs, as always. I'm Brandon Baney. Enjoy the games this week, everybody, and we'll see you next time on Idaho Sports.